This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, you gotta do it. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're gonna feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome once again to Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and do all those things that I tell you every day. And what a couple of days it's been. We've got all kinds of shenanigans. A socialist mayor has been elected for New York City. We'll not talk about that today, but I'm definitely coming back to that. Question for you, though. Why is it that the very same mainstream media that called Nigel Farage and Reform UK far right won't call the new mayor of New York far left? I think there's a bit of bias going on there, but I'm not surprised by that. Shocking revelations about the BBC doctoring a video about Donald Trump to make it look like he was inciting a riot in Washington. Now, that one will run and run. We'll come to that once there's a bit more clarity. But all of that's going on the other side of the pond from where I'm sitting. Good news. I physically met in Dubai with Sarah Evie Clark, who's our woman in Dallas in the United States. And soon, dear viewers, if in the United States, you're going to get Good Morning USA. That's going to be our show. We're just getting it all ready. And that will be a morning show for your good selves over there in the States. And forget the mainstream media. You'll get all the facts from us and our great opinions too. So lots going on. But let's get back to the United Kingdom. If you're watching this live, you may know that Rachel Reeves, the accident-prone and self-promoting chancellor who couldn't even get her CV right, couldn't get the manifesto promises right either. You may recall, and we'll look at a bit of video on this shortly, that she promised solemnly not to increase VAT, income tax, or national insurance. She didn't want to tax the working person. That was back in 2024. It seems that's now ancient history, even though she did repeat that promise after the budget in November. Yesterday, if you're watching this live, in a failurous and, in my view, cringeworthy statement and question and answer session, she implied that she was going to break those promises. Now, we'll wait and see if she will or not. But she's talked herself into a massive financial corner, as far as I can see. Rachel Reeves, who in my view is the worst chancellor we've had in living memory, is set to break the central commitment made by the Labour Party when the Tories were saying that Labour would necessarily put up taxes. They promised they would not. So everything hangs on this. Is Rachel Reeves going to promise so big, and I'll talk about this with my guest today, that they should really call a general election, I think, then, because it's a fundamental betrayal of the British people if they raise taxes? Or is there going to be a way out? Or perhaps you think that Rachel Reeves is entitled to promise without condition she wouldn't raise these taxes and then go ahead and do it, blaming everybody else. I wonder what you think. Go to the X or go to the chat, and we'll see if we can squeeze in some of your comments as well. But more than anything, I want to have the views of Nick Buckley, MBE, a man who didn't become an MBE for nothing. Nick, good to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And it's great to be back on this show.
You always bring the depression of the midweek right up to a positive state of mind. You're as constant as the Northern Star, always here for us. You're an MBE, which means you're a member of the British Empire, which means I suppose you're essentially a spiritual shareholder in the United Kingdom. How do you think your treasurer, your head of finance is doing, Rachel Reeves? She works for you even more than she works for the rest of us.
I remember a couple of shows back, you telling me off for my language, so I won't answer this question the way I want to answer this question. She's failing, but to be fair, we all knew she was going to fail. We all knew Labour were going to raise taxes, put us more in debt, and probably bankrupt us, because that's what every single Labour government has ever done by the time they leave office. Every single one. She's out of her depth. I don't think she knows. I mean, we all know she doesn't know what she's doing. She's playing sixth form politics all the time because she's talked about doing this job all her life. And she's talked to people who surprisingly, she's probably cleverer than. And she said, we should do this, we should do that. And it sounds amazing. Let's tax the rich. Oh, that sounds great because we don't think we're rich. But what she means is we're going to tax absolutely everybody to the hilt. But to be fair, this is exactly what the Tories did as well. So let's not get the Tories off the hook. They're just carrying on the Tory agenda here.
That's quite a depressing big picture analysis. Here's a piece of news. It's a news item from last year, I think it is, where she said very clearly, Reeves tells firms no more tax rises as she defends budget. And then she put up hugely put up taxes last year. And like tens of billions to fill a black hole, which I don't really think existed. But now there's definitely a black hole that exists, but she's still blaming other people. Let's have a look at what she actually said last year. Now, this was just before the general election, I think. She made a speech which I thought was cringeworthy in its own right, because she basically said things which I didn't believe. I did economics. I was actually top of my class for economics. I don't think she was. I don't think she was top of her class. Or if she was, I'd never send my children to the school that she was at. But she said quite clearly, there's no room for doubt here, that if she got elected chancellor, she wouldn't raise taxes. Have a listen to this.
Of high tax. On their watch, the tax burden is the highest in 70 years. I worked as an economist at the Bank of England before entering politics. I know what it takes to run a successful economy. I believe in sound money and in public spending that's kept under control. I did not come into politics to raise taxes on working people. So my promise to you is this. Labour will not put up your income tax, national insurance, or VAT. The Tories crashed the economy, and if they win, they will do it all over again, with their £71 billion of unfunded spending. That will push up your taxes and your mortgage bills. As Chancellor, I will deliver economic stability. On the 4th of July, vote to stop the chaos that's driving up your cost of living. Vote to turn the page on 14 years of failure. Vote for change. Vote Labour.
It's just awful. It's cringeworthy. It's laughable.
What
do you make of that?
First of all, she has a point, because everything she talked about there about the Tories, she was absolutely correct. So she was spot on with that. And the other part then about her not raising taxes and being, the grown-ups are back in the room was a famous phrase they kept saying. Let's be honest. We expect every politician to lie to us. And this has been historic. You can go back to Rome 2,000 years ago and people are writing there, never trust politicians. So that's always been something we've always known. Politicians exaggerate. Politicians lie. Politicians will say anything to get elected. And once they're elected, there's a very good chance they will break the promises they were elected upon. And that's almost every political party that's ever been elected in this country. That's all baked in. We accept that. Now, the consequences to that is people who lie to us, and if they lie a lot, tend not to get elected again. And the Labour Party doing so bad now, it's an existential threat for Labour over the next couple of decades. They may never be elected in again for a whole raft of reasons, but the economy is one of them.
Yeah, but when you think about it, though, Rachel Reeves, who's got this the gormless expression, which isn't really, I suppose, her fault, but it does very much reflect her lack of personality and character, in my view. When she looked straight into the camera before the general election 2024, when the Tories I think that they did mess things up. But when the Tories are screaming that Labour will increase taxes, and she promises, she uses the phrase, so we won't increase VAT, income tax, and national insurance, and it looks like we're all set to see an increase there. I have to say, I find this a worse kind of deception, because if the public had known that Labour were going to do these things, they wouldn't have even got the paltry 34% they did in the polls. That's 34% of the people who voted, around 1/5 of the total electorate voting for Labour. And I actually think this is a worse betrayal because it was about something important.
I'm sure she didn't know she was lying when she said it. I think she thought when she said it, I'm that clever because I've done A-level politics and I was a tea lady at the Bank of England. I'm that clever. Everything I do is going to work. Therefore, I mean it. I'm not going to put up taxes because my socialist dream, I've read Marx Capital and I've read this and I've read that. And people from the WEF have told me what to do. It's going to work. I'm not going to raise taxes. I don't have to. She believed all that. But reality has hit her in the face. And what we need to realize now, it's called bring the pain. That's what she's going to do now. She's going to bring the pain. Me and you are old enough to remember the 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah.
They were awful times. High unemployment, no one had any money, businesses collapsing, thousands of people losing their homes every month because they can't afford repayments. And people think it's bad today. It's not bad today compared to 50 years ago. And I fear we're going back to those days.
Well, when you say that, and I have to say, I was more sympathetic to the Labour Party when I was younger. It's said that you're not normal if you're not left wing when you're young and right wing when you're old. But I was more sympathetic to Labour. I felt that they had good intentions. I've always been very fond of Jeremy Corbyn. Actually, I know him personally. I think he's as left wing as the new socialist mayor of New York. So. I maybe don't share his politics, but I thought that he was well-intentioned. I don't feel that the current Labour Party looks well-intentioned. They don't feel to me in the same way I used to feel about Labour, which struck me as naive and a little bit wide-eyed, but well-meaning. Now I look at Keir Starmer, I think of him as a cynic. I think of him as self-serving. I think he was a totally incompetent head of the Crown Prosecution Service. I mean, to not even notice that Jimmy Savile was doing all those things, not notice enough to bring him to court one single time. So many things wrong there. So I now think we've got a Labour Party which is actually incompetent, but in a rather more vicious way. Now there he is. You know, there's the man. And this self-satisfied expression, which more or less says, "I've made it to Downing Street. What do I do next?" There's a film called, I think, The Candidate with Robert Redford. And the last line in it, when he wins, is, "What do we do now?" And I feel that that's pretty much what this Labour Party said. I think this is worse, Nick, because they're not just incompetent, but they're cynical. And they make really bad calls. Maybe in the second half of the show, we'll talk about some of those bad calls. I almost feel that you're more apologetic for them than I am, and that's rare.
No, what I don't want to do is to convince people that all our problems at the moment are down to this Labour government, because they're not. This Labour government isn't. Everything you said there is completely true, and they're making everything worse. But we need to, if we're going to fix this country, we need to realise this isn't just this Labour government's problem. They've not done this. They're just carrying on a 50-year agenda here that's slowly destroying us. We need to understand the bigger picture. Everything you said about Labour was true, but everything you said about Labour then you could say about the Tories and the Lib Dems. And that's because 50 years ago we had a better class of politicians. Today, they're basically all career politicians, straight from uni to a crap job in a party, safe seat, and they're doing as they're told. We don't have any, 50 years ago, we had miners who became MPs. We had soldiers. We had different people in different, business people. We had lots of different people in the Houses of Commons. Now we have all graduates who have all studied politics, who all just want to be Prime Minister.
Well,
and it's a job, it's a career. And that's a huge part of the problem.
I would slightly correct you there. I think Ed Davey the leader of the party I used to be involved in. He doesn't want to be prime minister. He wants to be a professional comedian, I think. There he is, flying the flag for liberal democracy.
Well, haven't we got a, who is it, Argentina, where the president was a TV comedian?
Yeah.
So that can happen. So this comedian who now leads the Lib Dems, every politician, you know this, you've sat in Parliament, even the most incompetent, corrupt, quiet, no self-control, no self-respect politician, every single one of them, sometimes in the middle of the night when they're dreaming, they dream of being PM.
Yeah, well, you could say that about Ukraine as well. There's Zelensky, another comedian, a professional comedian, who went on to become the losing head of Ukraine, a man who's killed thousands of people. In fact, those three represent, I think, exactly what's wrong. That we got, for those who don't know, that's Emmanuel Macron on the left, who seems to spend most of his time with his partner trying to prove that he's married to a woman. Unusual. They've got Keir Starmer, who infamously said of those kidnapped into Gaza, bring home the sausages, return of the sausages, which we obviously include in the opener for the program. But then we've got Volodymyr Zelensky. He used to play the piano with his personal part. I mean, this is not exactly the kind of statesman you would have seen in politics 60 years ago, is it?
No, absolutely not. And the ratings of all those three men, are in the gutter because of this, because they're not leaders. It's because all of them are either middle managers or puppet leaders because someone else has put them there. And you talk about Jeremy Corbyn. I would never, ever in a million years vote for Jeremy Corbyn. But since Thatcher, I would say he's the only statesman we've had in Parliament since Thatcher, because he tells you what he thinks. He knows what he wants. He has a vision for the country. It's a vision I don't want, but it's a vision he wants. And he's done his best to sell us that vision. He's not really for changing. And they're the sort of politicians we need, because we know where we stand with people like that. He's not going to get into power and then suddenly change all these policies, because he's not that type of person. We need more statespeople in Parliament who have got a vision, who are committed to a cause, committed to a future, instead of what we've got now, which is, these are my policies, and if you don't like them, I've got some more policies.
Yeah, that's exactly my view as well. As I say, I'm fond of Jeremy Corbyn. I actually wish him well with his party. I'm unlikely to vote for it, but I think it's sincere. They make the joke about Sultana and Corbyn being fruit and nut, but I actually think that they have got a significant and serious proposition if they can just organize themselves internally to be able to project that without distraction. Now, we're going to break in a minute, but I want to ask you, for the end of the first half here, why is this conversation happening in an unusual way, Nick? Normally, you are full of vitriol and venom to the point where I get scared you might get us off air. and I'm going, oh, come on, calm down, it's not so bad. But this time, you're almost talking as if it's in sorrow rather than anger. And you're slightly more sympathetic to the Labour Party, saying, well, it's not all their fault. And you're being, in my view, unexpectedly positive about Jeremy Corbyn, which I'm pleased about. He's a decent guy. And I actually won quite a lot of money in a bet whenever he got to be leader of the Labour Party. Why are we in each other's corners today?
That's because, for me, I just tell the truth. I tell you what I'm thinking. I never tweak it. I never think, what do people want to hear? If somebody doesn't want the truth off me, then the answer is, don't ask me a question. Now, the reason why it looks like I'm coming across a bit sympathetic towards Labour is this. It's because if we can convince the UK that all our problems are down to this Labour government, and that's what everyone seems to be doing, if we convince the public that it's all down to Labour, we're going to make the same mistakes we've been making over 50 years. It's like, let's just get rid of this Labour government, just like we got rid of the Tories, and all our problems will go away. And what we do, we swap one bag of vagabonds and bandits for another band of the same. We need, as voters and as citizens, we need to understand the bigger picture. And that is, we think we live in a democracy. It's only an illusion of democracy, because every time we go to the polls, we're given a choice of different colour rosettes, but underneath it's all the same party. So we need to understand that the Labour government's terrible, but if you think you're going to solve this country's problems just by getting rid of this government, then we just repeat everything else all over again, and we're back in this problem in 2 years' time with a different colour rosette.
A lot of comments coming in. I'll come to those after the break there. You're watching Lembit and Nick live. Thanks to everybody who is commenting. If you want to go and get involved, then you'll find the comments fairly easily. You can find this program on X, Unprecedented TV, and also on YouTube, where you'll find over 500 shows for you to see, and that's not even all of them. After the break, I want to talk about what looks like a broken promise in all but name by now. And I'm asking you a question. Do you think that Rachel Reeves can recover the position? Should she resign if she raises taxes? Should there be a general election? Because of what I believe is a massive breach of social contract between the Labour Party and the British electorate. You have your say. Before we go any further, though, Claire Dyer is one of the absolute stalwarts, one of the anchors of Unprecedented TV, because she puts herself out there to really raise issues which other people would rather not discuss. She's brilliant. She's hardworking. This is her show. Yes, that's great viewing. It's hard to watch sometimes. She deals with everything. Police harassment, lies from Transport for London, the relentless problems, social problems caused by illegal immigrants. Let's call them what they are, illegal immigrants. If you come into this country illegally, you're an illegal immigrant. I think we're meant to call them irregular migrants now. They're illegal immigrants. And she puts herself out there, and she campaigns, and she's on the demonstrations, and she's an absolutely superb person. Please do watch Claire Dyer's shows. We're going to actually, by popular demand, increase the number of times we broadcast those during the week. Let's get to some of the comments. We're talking about whether the Chancellor, well, she calls herself the Chancellor, Rachel from Accounts, Rachel Reeves, is doing a good job. Carl says, good morning to you as well. They said they're all working for the World Economic Forum, not us. Yeah, I was going to say that earlier, but you said it. Lying witch, which I think is generous language, but then we are being watched by children as well. Why are we bothering to vote then is a good question, if they're going to break their promises anyway. But then Colin adds, Farage is just the same. We don't know that yet. The inference there from Colin is that Farage, if he got in, would be, once again, saying one thing, doing another. That's not proven yet. Richard says, Nick Buckley, it's going to be worse today. UK has been built since 2000 on a money creation housing bubble. When it collapses, it will be anarchy. There's a bit of a chat between Collins and Richard. Collins adds, I remember as a kid, we could ask a neighbour for some milk if you ran out. Now it's food banks. That's true. Richard responds, so true. And there was some industry still. Now it's all gone, and the government has no assets left, just debt. A lot of pessimism there, a lot of conversation as well. And one more from Collins. If Farage got an early election, I would support him, but he seems happy to wait 3 more years. So am I. I think that reform needs those 3 years to get ready. I think that having an early election is risky because they're still training. They're still learning what government's like, and they're learning a lot from local government. So there is positive direction there. I really want to change. In my opinion, I think we need a change. We need to sweep away the old parties. Nick, there's a certain degree of cynicism in the chat there. Do keep your comments coming, by the way. Certain degree of cynicism in the chat there. I can hardly blame them.
So people are sinister about politicians. That we've not had that before. Of course there is. No one ever believes a politician. Like I said before, this goes back at least 2,000 years. We know what politicians are, the grifters. They tell us what they think we want to hear. Let me put this to you. I'm not 100%. I'm 50-50 whether or not she's going to raise income tax, Rachel Reeves. I'm not convinced she will do it. I think there's a scenario here that she won't. I think she may have floated the idea to worry people, and then when she doesn't raise income tax, but she'll raise lots of other taxes, people will go, oh, she didn't raise the income tax. Because I don't know what she gets out of raising income tax, apart from probably saving the economy. If she raises income tax, she ruins her reputation. She ruins her place in the history books. She upsets all her voters. She upsets the backbenchers. She upsets the far left, where if there's a way of still destroying the economy, but not collapsing it, pushing it down the path, a bit like Kaplunk, as in, I can pull some more straws out, but the marbles won't fall yet. Someone else will make the marbles fall. If she can do that, knowing they're probably going to lose the next election, I think there's a chance she's going to do that. So I'm not convinced she's going to raise income tax.
I don't play Kaplunk. Well, you illustrated it very well. I think it's more like Jenga. Yes, he's going to pull one out, and it's all going to come tumbling down. I think the public, this is my experience of politics and perhaps my experience of my own life. I think the public are tolerant, public is tolerant. But then when you get to this breaking point, let's use one of the environmental hoaxsters' phrases, a tipping point, then they all go, no, that's it. That's what happened to the Conservatives, I think, in last year's general election. I think Labour's already there. I think they're well past the point of no return. I cannot see how Labour can recover it. But leaving the analogies aside, I do think that the idea of an early election isn't really helpful. I think morally we should have one if she does raise taxes. I also happen to agree with what you've said there. Oh, breaking news, by the way. What's really great here is that we've got columnists saying fair point, Lembit. So I've got a supporter there. I've been vindicated. Well, hey, that's great news. But what I think will quite possibly happen is exactly what you said. That necessarily she has to find some way to sweeten the pill. So if she makes it sound worse than it's going to be, people go, it's not so bad. The thing is, if she doesn't increase her income tax and she goes for VAT is regressive, because regardless of your income, if she puts more VAT on things, then whether you're rich or poor, you pay more for that thing. And that's even more unfair. And national insurance is going to harm industry even more. I can't see how she gets out of this problem.
And if she puts VAT up, because she won't put national insurance, VAT, or income tax up. I don't think she'll touch any of them three.
You don't think so?
No, but if she put that up, then what happens then is the welfare bill has to go up, because you put 5% on VAT. So all those people on benefits all need an extra 5% now, because everything's gone up in the shops. So that would be a double whammy for her. I think she'll fudge it. I think she'll fudge this, fudge that. She'll look for some tax cuts, but they're going to be minimal, because her backbenchers won't have tax cuts. And I'm not sure where the money's coming from. I don't know. But I just don't think it's a given that she's going to raise those three big tax pots.
Well, let's have a look at what she actually did say when she was, essentially being, challenged on this. It seems to me that she's got herself into a really big mess here. If you're watching this live yesterday, this is a challenge that was made to her, and I think her answer is pathetic.
Made history in your last budget when you increased taxes by £40 billion in the biggest tax raising budget in over a generation. You said at the time it was a once in a parliament tax raising budget, and you told me explicitly Labour would stick to our manifesto commitment not to increase taxes that working people pay. Today, do you still stand by both those promises? And if you can't, or if you won't, aren't you making a mockery of the voters that put their trust in you at the general election? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. I will set out the individual policies at the budget on the 26th of November. That's not what today is about. Today is about setting the context for that budget. And your viewers can see the challenges that we face, but the challenges that are on a global nature. And they can also see the challenges in the long-term performance of our economy. And the Office of Budget Responsibility will set all that out. They've done the review of the supply side of the economy. That looks at the past, but they use the past to predict the future. And as Chancellor, I have to face the world as it is, not the world that I want it to be. And when challenges come our way, the only question is how to respond to them, not whether to respond or not. And as I respond at the budget on the 26th of November, my focus will be on getting NHS waiting lists down, getting the cost of living down, and also getting the national debt down.
What a pathetic set of answers. That was pathetic.
A political answer where ask me a question, and I'll do my best not to answer it.
But it was just rubbish. She said nothing. I remember what we said before. She said unconditionally she wouldn't raise income tax, national insurance, or VAT. Now, you don't think she'll touch income tax. You think she'll touch VAT? But if she touches any of the three, she's broken her
I don't
promise.
I think I'm 50-50. There's a 50% chance she won't touch any of the big three because she's promised it. So there's a chance, I think 50-50.
Well, it's pretty bad odds all the same. 50-50 that she's going to break a solemn promise.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. It just isn't.
No.
I wonder if this is going to ricochet very badly on Keir Starmer. I mean, he's been endlessly supporting her. On and on and on he goes about how important she is, and he's seen with her. I actually think it's almost impossible for him to sack her without fatally damaging his own career. I actually don't see how even either of them can seriously think they're going to win the next election. Their gormless, pathetic approach means that even Kemi Badenoch there looks comparatively good. Kemi comes across to me at least as much more clear-headed than Rachel Reeves, who just lives in this kind of twilight world of I don't know what I would describe it as, darkness. It's not like I think she's evil. I just think she's like a 15-watt light bulb. It's just glows dimly.
I don't think she had any idea how difficult the job was going to be and how much pressure she was going to be under and how little she can control things. I thought she was going to get that job and she'd have all these levers to pull and everybody would do as they're told. And if she said the markets jump, the markets would jump. If she said, I want higher productivity, they would get higher productivity. I don't think she had any idea how difficult this job is. And that's why she's failing.
Well, yeah, when you watch her, when you watch her talking like that, it just doesn't engender any confidence. I train public speaking, and I would do so much to try to improve her, but I don't think it would stick because her horsepower isn't enough. In engine terms, if you need 500 horsepower to win the Chancellor race, she's on 120. She's just nowhere near the bar. Hasn't got anything near the energy. I was at the conference in Dubai recently, and there were some really live wires, people from all over the world, people at the top of an NGO, non-governmental organizations, do with space and populating space. Really glamorous, interesting subject. And you could see people were fizzing with energy and character and belief. She would have completely and utterly failed if she'd made a presentation in that room, and there were a lot of people there. She made a presentation. People would have said, "Who is this? Are you sure in the right place?" And that the problem is she's a chancellor.
Yeah, but again, a lot of that sounds like style over substance. So, you know, we had that before, and the prime minister was called Boris Johnson, who came across like he had all the answers and he was your best mate in the pub, and he became prime minister. And for me, he was the worst prime minister I think we've had in the country, only because he set himself up to fail by promising us he was the next Churchill going to save us, and he completely failed. A bit like Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. So when Gordon Brown always looked the dire one, he never smiled, he was serious. That's great. I want a serious chancellor. I want serious politicians. I don't want clowns. But when he became prime minister, he was being told all the time, be more like Tony Blair, be more like Tony Blair. And you'd see him in the middle of the interview going, and then he'd go, and he tried to smile to be like Tony Blair, and it was the freakiest thing you'd ever seen. So I want people to be themselves. I don't care if she's boring. I just want her to be a really good chancellor.
Yeah.
And come up with
It's not that I blame her for being dull. I blame her for lacking the awakeness necessary to do her job. She sees through a mirror dimly. You meet all kinds of people. Some of the very best people I've met in broadcasting on the technical side, they're not razzmatazz. They come in quietly. They sit down at the editing suite, and what they present to you afterwards is magnificent because they've been focused and they haven't been clowning around. And they make all the links are great. The subtitles are perfect, and their work speaks for them. But the problem with Rachel Reeves, an interesting point made, Robot Reeves by Colin says, is that, as Colin also says, she's out of her depth. She's in a job she should never have been employed for because she cannot do the job. Now, economics isn't the most exciting thing. I'd studied it at school, top rated there, started it at university, but dropped out because I felt it was more of a pseudoscience than a social science. But I did do a year of it and just scraped through. But I could see that it does take some understanding of the human condition because it's a social science. It's about psychology. And she hasn't got it. And I think that's one reason that she shouldn't be in the job.
And she'd understand all that if she read some history books on economics, because she's making all the same mistakes lots of other socialist governments always make. And she's going, oh, I didn't know this was going to be the outcome. Why? It's always the outcome when you do these things. Why haven't you learned that? Why haven't your advisors learned that? But you think you're going to do it for the 115th time, and you think you're going to get a different result. Why would you think that?
Yeah, that's the thing. And she just doesn't engender confidence. I think that's the problem. She just doesn't engender confidence. Even in that conference that she did, it seemed to me she'd lost her way. She was almost apologizing before she even had the meeting, if you like, the discussion. Looking ahead, then, what do you think is going to happen next?
I think her job's safe. I think Starmer knows you can't get rid of her, because every prime minister knows if you get rid of your chancellor, there's like a 90% chance you're gone very soon as well. So they're joined at the hip. I'm not, like I say, I'm 50-50 on tax rises, on income tax, VAT, or national insurance, but tax rises are definitely coming. She's in huge trouble. I keep seeing on YouTube economists and people who know more than me. Doesn't mean they know everything, but they know more than me. I don't understand economics as well as many people. But they're all saying, a collapse could be coming. They're saying we could end up at the IMF for a bailout. If something like that happens, then that'll be the end of her and the end of this government. I think that's what's going to cause this government into an early election. They're never going to vote for an early election because they're all going to lose their £100,000 a year seats. So then turkeys don't vote for Christmas. But if the economy collapses or the economy gets even worse, that could force them into an early general election. But that's the only way she goes.
The electoral mathematics say no to that, because if you've got an enormous majority, why would you vote for that? The only way this would happen now, I think, is if the prime minister becomes so utterly rocked with scandal. And I do have to say, for other reasons, I think that's a possibility. Just for in terms of other antics he's been involved in or may have been involved in, then that could cause the collapse. If this prime minister becomes mired in hugely embarrassing scandal, that could cause a general election. But short of that, I can't see them going before 2029, because just like the Conservatives should have done, they should have played it to the very end. And previous governments that have been in trouble, that they play it to the very end. So I don't see that being a trigger. But the other thing that could do it is if the public simply say, we now no longer consent. General strikes, essentially. An absolute refusal to accept the pathetic performance of this government.
I don't think that would bring any government down. Do you remember the poll tax riots and stuff like that? That doesn't. What the people want never brings down the government. It has to be something external. I think if our economy collapses, we have to go to the IMF. We can't sell our gilts anymore. No one bothers money. Unemployment's the highest now for 4 years. If that keeps going up, it gets to a stage where they look at themselves and going, we're killing the country. We don't want an early election, but we're done. We know we're done. And what's that phrase? Events overtaken.
Yeah. I suppose the last thing I'd say on this is the great massive elephant in the room, the inflatable elephant, is the fact that we've got, not just a problem with the government, but a problem with the beaches, because they haven't done anything to deal with this relentless influx of cost. This is cost. We're looking at cost in a boat because of the way you manage it. And I don't know how much it costs to put somebody in a 5-star hotel, what the deal is, but it's going to be a lot. And if you're paying, say, just let's do the figures, £100 a day is probably more. That's coming on to 40 grand a person. If there, let's say, 50 people in that boat there, that's 200,000. That's basically 400. That's £2 million worth of cost in that boat, roughly. I'm guessing. Somebody can put me right if that's wrong. And we're not stopping it. And even today, I saw another revelation that illegal immigrants, asylum seekers, illegal immigrants are actually running those ramshackle shops that sell illegal fags in the street. And it wasn't hard to expose it. So they're actually making it worse. It's said the only reason our gross domestic product looks like it's going up is because of illegal immigrants. Or because of net migration, to be precise. Net migration, let me get that right. Finally, if you were the Chancellor, what would you be saying in the budget in a few weeks' time?
I would want to cut taxes, but you probably couldn't do it today. I'd be looking at massive public spending cuts. So I'd be looking at getting rid of our foreign aid. That's about 7-9 billion a year. I'd be looking at illegal immigration. I'd stop that in 2 days, 48 hours. Nobody illegal would ever be coming in the country again. And I would deport every single illegal migrant in the country. And then I would look at legal migration. There's something like 1.9 legal migrants in the country, 1.9 million of them who are on benefits. Why are we importing people into the country to live on benefits? All of them need to go home. There's many savings we could do. I mean, the left will hate it. The public sector will hate it. But absolutely fine. That's where the savings come from, is slashing the size of the state. And all those people we sack then have to go into the public sector to get jobs. And then they start paying tax. And suddenly the economy starts taking off.
The private sector. The reality is no government, in my political experience, and I've been professionally involved in politics, though I have done proper jobs as well, if you put it that way, for 40 years. But I was first a councillor. First I was in student politics full time. But in that 40 years, no one's really made significant savings. And I'll say this for nothing, my opinion here. If there's one government that's totally and utterly incapable of taking on the unions, of taking on public spending, of taking on the migration crisis, it's the Labour Party now.
Yeah.
Nick, always good to speak with you. I'm sure we've cheered everybody up.
I'm sure we have. Just one quick point before we go. You just said then you were involved in student politics when you was at university.
Yeah.
You're qualified to be the Chancellor.
I'm maybe qualified to be the Chancellor because I was top of my class at school for economics, and because I left economics because I became disillusioned with the subject. Maybe I'm skeptical enough in the economic world to also understand, at least in my view, governments don't run economies, they wreck economies. The best a government can do is leave it alone. Let it do its thing. Just try and stay away.
It sounds now like you've just advertised that you're overqualified.
Well, I'm not planning to be Chancellor. I wasn't planning to get back involved in politics, but I have to an extent. But Nick, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. I'd rather spend the whole day talking with you like this, talking about politics rather than doing it. That is Nick Buckley, absolute reliable regular, usually on Wednesdays. You have your say. Thanks for everybody. I'm sorry I didn't get through all of your comments, but do get involved in the chat. It's very helpful. And you can see that we record it live as well. Either that or I'm brilliant at predicting things. And I don't think there's any AI that could predict what Richard and Colin would say, actually. Do enjoy the other shows as well. And by popular request, we're going to increase the frequency with which we replay the Claire Dyer programs. They have a longevity and an acute insight into what's going wrong with the world. And she also talks about what's going right. Have your say as well about what you'd like us to cover. We're always open to ideas. In the meantime, try and enjoy your day. Hope I haven't depressed you too much. And if you're watching this in the archive, maybe after the budget, see how much of what we said is right. I make a prediction. National insurance, VAT or income tax will go up. Maybe more than one of those. But whatever happens, there'll be a tax increase. And I think that, morally speaking, somebody who looks a camera in the eye and makes a promise and breaks it in politics shouldn't be in their job. You have your say too. Thanks so much indeed. I'm Lembit Öpik. That was Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. See you soon.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages.